She was never the kind of girl who shouted her dreams from rooftops. She didn't need to. Her silence held weight, the kind that hinted at something waiting to bloom beneath the surface. People mistook it for passivity. They thought she was quiet because she didn't have much to say, but they didn't know the conversations she had with herself late at night, the kind that carve you open and stitch you back together, all in one breath. While others were sketching futures around the people they loved, she was building something inside herself, not in grand, sweeping declarations, but in small, persistent choices, a notebook filled with plans, a schedule others called obsessive. She didn't roll her eyes at hard work, she respected it. She respected the ache of effort, the price of passion, and she knew, deep down, that she couldn't give both her heart and her dreams away. Not fully, not yet. There were moments when love knocked softly, not demanding, just present. The kind of love that brings you coffee when you're buried under work, that waits by the door while you chase something it doesn't understand. And she wanted to let it in God, she did. There were nights her body leaned into the warmth of someone else, and for a second she wondered if she could have both. Maybe she didn't have to choose. Maybe the world was kind enough to make room for love and ambition, side by side. But the truth kept whispering through the cracks. Love, as beautiful as it is, asks for attention. It asks for time. It asks you to soften your edges when you've spent years sharpening them, and she couldn't. Not then, because the dreams she carried weren't gentle. They were wild. They asked everything of her. They pulled her from sleep, filled her lungs with urgency, and dared her to want more than just someone's arms around her. It wasn't that she didn't believe in love. She did. She just didn't believe in sacrificing herself to keep it, and the kind of love she had met so far had asked her to pause, to be available, to answer every call, even when she was on the brink of something great. And slowly, she started to see it. Not all love is cruel, but not all love knows how to stay when you choose something else first. So she chose the dream, quietly, deliberately, not with fireworks, but with the stillness of someone who knows she might break her own heart doing it, and still does it anyway. People didn't understand. Some said she was too hard to love, too distant, too focused on things that didn't breathe, but they missed the point. Her dreams did breathe. They lived inside her. They gave her purpose when everything else felt uncertain. And that kind of fire, once lit, is nearly impossible to extinguish. She didn't walk away from love with bitterness. She walked away with reverence, because she knew what it meant to leave something tender behind in order to find something fierce ahead. And though it hurt, she never once looked back wishing she'd stayed. Because every step forward, every lonely evening and tired morning reminded her this was who she was always meant to be. Not someone's second choice, not someone's shadow, but her own beginning. It didn't come like a lightning bolt. No dramatic turning point, no cinematic music swelling in the background, just a quiet moment, barely a breath where everything shifted. A choice. It stood in front of her like an open door and a locked one, both holding something she wanted. And she had to decide, comfort or courage, love or legacy. It felt unfair in that moment that wanting both was somehow too much, but she knew, deep down she knew, the love was soft, familiar, the kind you could fall asleep next to without thinking. It offered her a hand, a home, a place to rest. It said all the right things. It promised that it would wait, that it understood her fire, that it wouldn't get in the way, and maybe it believed that. Maybe for a time it even meant it, but something inside her whispered louder than any promise ever could. If you choose this, you will lose a part of yourself, because love, even gentle love, can become an anchor when you are meant to fly. The dream wasn't safe. It didn't hold her. It didn't wait by the door or tell her she was enough. It demanded, it pushed, it asked her to bleed for it, to fail in front of people who didn't believe in her, to risk becoming a version of herself no one recognized. But that was the thing. She didn't want to be recognized. She wanted to be real. She wanted to meet the woman she could become if she gave herself the chance. It broke her to admit it, to say out loud that the life others found beautiful felt like a trap to her. Not because it wasn't lovely, but because it wasn't hers. She could see herself 5 years down that path, safe, settled, silent, smiling at dinner tables, nodding in conversations where her voice had started to fade, and her heart tightened at the thought. So she stepped back, not from love, but from a version of herself that had learned to shrink just to make someone else stay. People say choosing dreams over love is selfish, but no one talks about how much it costs. No one talks about the nights you cry yourself to sleep because you miss the one person who made you feel seen, or the ache of walking away from hands that never tried to hold you too tight, only to realize they were holding you still. The world doesn't prepare you for that kind of loneliness, the kind that comes not from being unloved, but from choosing not to be dependent on love. But she didn't want to live a life built on borrowed time and borrowed plans. She wanted something she could build with her own hands, even if they shook while doing it. And so she chose courage, not the loud, heroic kind, the quiet kind, the kind that whispers keep going when there's no applause, the kind that sits with you on the floor after another rejection and reminds you why you started, the kind that doesn't beg anyone to stay. She didn't hate love, she just didn't let it tame her. And while the world told her she was walking away from something beautiful, she knew she wasn't walking away. She was walking towards something raw, something honest, something that, maybe one day, would welcome love not as a replacement for her dreams, but as something that could stand beside them. Until then, she'd keep walking. No one warned her that chasing dreams would be so quiet, that the path she chose would echo in a way that made her question if she was moving forward or just farther away from everything familiar. People see ambition and picture spotlights, applause, eyes watching in admiration. But they don't see the empty apartments, the quiet dinners, the calendar filled with tasks but no names, no arms reaching for you at the end of the day, no voice saying, "You've done enough." The truth is, growth is lonely. She didn't expect that. She thought following her passion would feel like freedom, but it felt like distance. It felt like being the only one clapping for yourself when you finally did something hard. And there were days she just wanted someone to notice, to care, to say they missed her. But the messages stopped coming when she stopped replying too late. Night calls just to finish one more hour of work. People said she changed, that she wasn't as soft anymore. They didn't understand. She hadn't hardened. She had just gotten tired of explaining herself. And yet, in the loneliness, something sacred happened. In the silence, she began to hear herself again, her own voice, unfiltered, not shaped by anyone else's expectations or needs. It was rough at first, uncertain, unsure, but it grew steadier, stronger. The kind of voice that didn't need to ask for permission. There were moments when the ache almost won, when she saw friends holding hands in cafes or laughing with people who were proud just to stand beside them. She wondered if she'd made a mistake, if the trade was worth it. There's a specific kind of pain in watching people have what you walked away from, especially when it looks easy. But she reminded herself again and again, easy isn't always right. Comfort isn't always growth. And sometimes love comes too early, before you're ready to carry both it and yourself at the same time. So she kept going, not out of stubbornness, but because she could feel herself expanding. It wasn't visible to anyone else. No one was clapping. No one was watching. But she was changing. Slowly, yes, but completely. She was becoming someone who didn't need constant reassurance. Someone who could hold her own hand in the dark and say, "We're still here. Keep going." People think loneliness is the absence of others, but she learned it can also be the presence of yourself, in its purest, most unedited form. And while it wasn't always pleasant, it was real. There was no pretending in those quiet hours. No performing, just her or tired, still trying. And that's what no one tells you about chasing a dream. You will miss people. You will question everything. You will wonder if maybe you could have stayed, loved, and lived a smaller version of yourself just to be held at night. But she didn't want to be half loved. She didn't want to be half alive. She wanted the full weight of who she could become. So even in the silence, even in the spaces where no one checked in or asked how she was, she kept choosing the dream, kept building something that only she could see for now, because she knew one day the world might catch up. But until then, the loneliness wasn't a punishment, it was a passage, a quiet, sacred becoming. There were days she carried guilt like a second skin, not because she had hurt anyone, but because she had chosen herself, and for some reason, the world made her feel like that was wrong, like wanting more was too much, like ambition was something she should apologize for. They told her she was ungrateful, cold even, that she should be content with love, with security, with someone who cared, but no one ever asked what she needed. What made her come alive? What kept her awake at night, not from heartbreak, but from hunger, the kind that came from knowing there was more out there, and she hadn't even scratched the surface yet. She started noticing it in small ways. The way people frowned when she talked about work with too much excitement. The way they shifted uncomfortably when she declined a weekend away to stay focused. As if wanting to succeed was a betrayal. As if she was supposed to be flattered by love and flinch from purpose. They said she was difficult, that she always had something to prove, and maybe she did, but it wasn't to them. It was to the version of herself that once doubted she could become anything at all. No one talks about the guilt that follows you when you outgrow what once made you feel safe. The quiet shame of not being satisfied with things that once filled your heart. She remembered being that girl, soft, wide-eyed, hopeful. She remembered thinking love could fix everything, but it couldn't, not when part of her felt unseen, unused, unexpressed. There was a whole world inside her, and it didn't fit into someone else's schedule. Still, she questioned herself, often, wondered if she was chasing the wrong thing, wondered if she was missing out on something beautiful, something lasting. She missed the small moments, missed having someone to call at the end of the day. Missed the simplicity of being held without having to explain why she was exhausted. But what she didn't miss was the quiet ache of compromise, of swallowing her dreams so someone else could sleep peacefully. People asked why she couldn't just balance it all, why it had to be either or, but the truth is, no one ever asked men to shrink to be loved. No one told them they were too focused, too driven, too much. She was just tired of shrinking, tired of softening every word so it wouldn't sound like pride, tired of playing small so someone else could feel big next to her. She learned that it was okay to want more, and that wanting more didn't mean she didn't appreciate what she had. It meant she loved herself enough to believe in her own potential. She didn't want a life where her soul had to whisper. She wanted to live out loud, even if that meant being misunderstood, even if that meant being alone for a while. The guilt didn't vanish overnight. It still crept in when she saw others choosing love first and being praised for it. But now she knew better. Choosing herself wasn't an act of defiance. It was an act of truth. And if loving her meant someone had to ask her to choose them over her dream, then it wasn't really love at all. She was done apologizing for being passionate, for having vision, for chasing something she couldn't quite name, but deeply needed. It didn't make her selfish. It made her alive, and maybe that was the most radical thing she could be in a world that kept telling her to settle. At first, it felt like love could wait. It said all the right things, go chase it, I'll be here. It promised space, patience, understanding. And she believed it, because deep down she wanted to. She wanted to believe that someone could love her and still let her become everything she dreamed of being. But love that waits isn't always love that stays. Sometimes it waits until it gets tired, until it realizes that watching someone grow also means watching them change, and not everyone is ready for that. She watched it happen slowly, like a soft unraveling. The calls came less often, the messages shorter, the warmth more distant, and she could feel it, love beginning to shrink, not out of cruelty, but out of confusion, because she wasn't the same girl anymore. She wasn't easy to hold, easy to predict, easy to reach. Her world had become bigger than late night talks and morning texts. It was full of deadlines, ideas, dreams that didn't always leave room for someone else's timeline. And it hurt because she hadn't stopped caring. She hadn't stopped wanting to come back at the end of the day and share the moments that made her heart beat faster. But she began to understand that not everyone is built to love someone who doesn't need saving. Not everyone knows how to stay when they're not the center of your universe. He tried in his way, but she could see it, the quiet disappointment in his eyes when she missed another weekend away, the way his voice dimmed when she talked about new goals. He didn't say it, but she could feel it. He wanted something easier, something softer, and she couldn't blame him. Everyone deserves a love that fits, but she wasn't built for fitting into someone else's life. She was building one of her own. It's a painful thing to outgrow love that once felt like home, to watch it drift, not because of betrayal or anger, but simply because the paths no longer run parallel. She tried to hold on, gently, hoping love could adapt, that maybe he'd see the fire in her and want to protect it, not put it out. But eventually, she realized he didn't fall out of love with her. He fell out of love with the version of her that no longer existed. There's a loneliness in that kind of realization, a sharp, quiet grief that sits with you in between milestones. No one tells you how heavy it feels to succeed without the person you thought would be clapping the loudest. But she didn't let the ache stop her, because she'd made a promise to herself long before love entered the picture. You will not abandon who you are for the comfort of being chosen. And in time, she saw it clearly. Real love doesn't ask you to choose. It doesn't grow bitter in your light. It doesn't flinch at your ambition. Real love doesn't need you to shrink. It finds joy in your expansion. Maybe one day, she'll find that kind of love. Or maybe she won't, but what matters is, she's not waiting, not anymore. She's not pressing pause on her dreams in the hope that someone might catch up. She's walking forward, sometimes with tears in her eyes, yes, but always with her head held high. Because the girl who once feared losing love now knows. The only thing worse than being left behind is leaving yourself behind. And that's a price she'll never pay again. She didn't end up where the storybooks said she would. There was no dramatic reunion, no airport chase, no arms wrapping around her at the last second. No one begged her to stay. No one fought to pull her back. And for a long time that hurt more than she admitted, because somewhere in the softest part of her heart she hoped that choosing her dreams wouldn't mean choosing them alone. But the world didn't stop for her story. It kept spinning as it always does, and slowly she stopped waiting for it to write her a fairy tale ending. She picked up the pen herself. She started to create a future with her own hands, messy, imperfect, unfinished, but hers. Every morning she woke up without anyone beside her. She became stronger. Every night she sat alone after another long day. She became clearer. And somewhere in that routine, somewhere in the stillness, she realized she wasn't lonely anymore. She was becoming not the version others expected, not the one who settled at the right time or softened just enough to stay palatable. She became someone who didn't need validation to feel seen, someone who didn't chase love to feel worthy, someone who finally understood that freedom isn't loud, it's calm, quiet, unshakable. She remembered who she used to be, the girl who thought she had to earn love by being less, the girl who made herself smaller in rooms so someone else could shine. That girl would never have dared to take up space, to speak too boldly, to dream too loudly. But now she didn't apologize for her light. She didn't ask for permission to exist fully. She had paid for her confidence with loneliness, with heartbreak, with sacrifice. And she wore it like armor, and yet she was still soft, just not in the way that bends for everyone. She still believed in love, deeply. She just believed in herself more, and that made all the difference. Because now, if love ever found her again, it would have to meet her, not rescue her, not rewrite her story, just walk beside her, without needing to be the destination. The world rarely celebrates women like her. Women who walk away, who choose work over romance, who say no, even when it's easier to say yes. But she didn't need applause anymore. Her peace was loud enough. The life she built, on her terms, was the proof. Not everyone saw it, but she did. She saw the growth in the mirror, in her posture, in her eyes. She saw the strength she carried now, not because someone gave it to her, but because she forged it herself. And maybe one day she'll look back and laugh at how much she feared being alone, at how hard she held on to love that wasn't meant for her, just because the world told her a woman is incomplete without it. But not anymore. She's not waiting for someone to make her life feel full, because it already is. She's already living the story, just not the one they wrote for her, a story without perfect endings, a story filled with courage, resilience, and quiet victories. The kind of story where the heroine doesn't get saved, because she never needed saving. She saved herself every single time.